Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Upasna, and on behalf of TIE Delhi NCR, I extend a very, very warm welcome to each one of you to this very different webinar that we are hosting this evening. Many of you who've been a part of what all we've been doing in the last 7 or 8 months know how deeply we have engaged with the startup entrepreneurs, investors, and this entire ecosystem. We've done a lot of stuff which is very, very you know, deep dive and very technical sort of stuff. But tonight, I think we are here with the two most interesting people, Dr. Dhruv Nath and Sushanto Mitra, who are the co-authors of this book called Funding Your Startup and Other Nightmares. And I think many of you would resonate with that title. This afternoon, we are going to have both Dr. Dhruv Nath and Mr. Mitra in conversation with Deep Kalra. I would take a minute or maybe two to introduce all of them to you. Sushanto Mitra is an entrepreneur. He's been associated with the startup ecosystem for about 15 years, maybe more. He's now the CEO and founder of Lead Angels. Prior to that, he's been engaged as the CEO of Sign at IIT Mumbai. And of course, he's the co-author of this book, Funding Your Startup and Other Nightmares. Dr. Dhruv Nath, for him, it is a fourth book, and he's, of course, a professor at MBI Gurgaon. He's also a director at Lead Angels and an angel investor. Uh, and in conversation with Dr. Nath and Sushanto is going to be Deep Kalra, a person who really needs no introduction. Deep, of course, as you all know, is the founder and group executive chairman of Make My Trip. He's on the board of TIE Delhi-NCR. We are very, very proud to say that each time. And he's also been the president of TIE Delhi-NCR in the past. So, of course, Deep is also one of the founding members of the Ashoka University and he's a very, very well awarded and very well known entrepreneur in the country. There are some other things that you will get to know about Deep and the association between Deep and the two authors here while this conversation is on. I would now hand this over to Dr. Dhruv Nath and Sushanto Mitra. Sushanto Mitra, sorry. So over to you, Dr. Nath and Sushanto.
Thanks, Upasna, and thanks, Deep, once again for being here. Of course, here now as a different avatar, because many years ago I was your senior in school and in college. Right? So you have to be nice to me, and I'm going to ask you tough questions. I didn't drag you when you were in college because I was too senior. I would have gone out of college before you came in. So this is your ragging session.
Fair enough.
Of course, I'll just say that before I hand this over to Dhruv, that the journey of writing a book together with Dhruv has also been like a startup. It had its ups and downs, and it had deadlines to be met. So Dhruv has been very nice and kind to me about those deadlines, because I, at that point of time, unlike him, was not a professor, but running a startup of my own. So thank you, Dhruv, and over to you.
Thanks, Sushanto, and thanks so much, Deep, for joining us here. So just to share with you guys listening out there, when we wrote this book, we spent time with some real big time success stories in the world of startups. And one of the people we met was Deep. And we are absolutely delighted that A, he contributed to the book, and B, he's now here to share with you his wisdom, his experiences, right? So what I will do is I will just take maybe 2 minutes. I know for a professor, 2 minutes, talking for 2 minutes is difficult, but I'll attempt to cut it down to 2 minutes. This is the book that we are talking about, Funding Your Startup and Other Nightmares. And you can see Deep Kalra at the top. Not this penguin, the rest of it. The text is Deep Kalra. He's also got it. Yeah. So what I just do for 2 minutes is, in the book, essentially what we've done is we have created something called a persistent framework. And that's a framework within which you can analyze your startup to see whether it is likely to become successful or not, A, and B, whether it is likely to get funded or not. Obviously, there's no guarantee, but can you improve your chances by following this kind of framework? And I must tell you that people like Deep have a very strong contribution to creating this framework. So I'll just take 2 minutes to share this framework with you guys, and then we can probably start off with the questions. Uh, One of the things that happens during COVID times is that everybody becomes a master at Zoom. Yeah? That's one thing we have learned. Okay, so just to share with you, this is the framework. Yeah, and essentially each letter of the word persistent stands for something. So persistent is an acronym, right? And if you look at P, which is the first letter, that's problem. Are you solving a problem? Because if you're not solving a problem for the customer, then obviously nobody is going to pay you. Second thing is E, which is the earnings model. Um, are you likely to get revenues from the customer? Again, if not, you can't have a sustainable startup. What are the risks, which is R in persistent? And obviously, every business has its risk. You have to figure out what your risks are. Size of the market is extremely important, which is the S in persistent, because if the size of the market is not large enough, obviously you can't grow. Because how would you grow in a small market? Innovative solutions are a good way to overcome risks. It's a good way, not always, but yes, it helps. Scalability. You may have a very large market size that you're addressing, but if your startup is not scalable, it's pointless because you will not grow within that size, right? I'll start from the other end. Entry barrier becomes extremely important because somewhere you have to keep out competition, right? And that's your entry barrier. If you're in a crowded market space, then it's not a good idea to get in. So therefore, try and identify a large enough niche which is not crowded within that market space. And that's why I use the term niche or N. Finally, what is very, very important is the team, starting with the founder, because a lot of people say, and I'm sure Deep would probably agree with me, at an early stage when investors invest, they look more at the founder than at the business, because a good founder can probably turn things around. And finally, of course, traction, which is, are you getting customers? Are the customers growing month on month? Are you getting customers who are paying? Are they sticky customers? And so on, right? So that's the persistent framework. Of course, beyond this is the English meaning of the word persistent, because, when you're creating a business, and I think nobody understands this better than Deep, who's been at it for decades. Uh, when you're creating a business, you'll have ups and downs, probably more downs than ups, and you just got to keep on and on and on and at it, right? You got to be persistent. So that's broadly a persistent framework. And within that context now, I'll just stop sharing. I think let's start the quizzing of Deep Kalra.
The ragging of Deep Kalra,
No, I prefer to use the term quizzing since I wasn't his senior. So, Deep, when I met you, and you were kind enough to share your views for the book, one of the terms which you shared, one of the statements you shared, and I keep sharing it all over the place is, and I link it to the problem in persistent. You said, be an anisin for the customer, don't be a vitamin. Now that really stuck in my mind. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, surely. Firstly, I have to thank all of you. I have to thank Upasana for that warm, introduction. Sushanto, I knew you were familiar. I didn't realize that we have two alumni or two alma maters in common, rather. So there is no question of being tough. You can rag me as much as you want, but the ragging has to be as good or bad it was in college. So there was no. So
Sure.
that's the good part. It was not an engineering college, so luckily we got away easy. And Dhruv, of course, you have every right to quiz and question and everything. Yeah. So firstly, congratulations to both of you for the book. I think it's come out really well, if I can say so myself. And it's not every management book which turns out like that. I think you've captured. I mean, I could definitely see what we spoke about. You've captured the essence. You've also, I think, made it very readable and relatable. And I think that's what's important. Today, there's too much information going around. There is no dearth of management books. So firstly, what I really love is that you chose a very painful point. So you actually ticked the P in your own. Like if like Shushanto said, if it's been a startup to write this book and work with you, then you've already ticked the model, the first one. Because at the end of the day, while I know you don't expect to, make a pot of gold from the book, but it'll be nice to make some money. More than that, I think it's for authors. It's always a very rewarding feeling.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
dad wrote a book a few years ago, and for him, it's just a rewarding feeling if people say, "Oh, we liked your book." I heard, by the way, someone on the chat say that they couldn't buy
Yes.
the book on Amazon, so please take a look at that
Okay.
because that's where half my target is going to come out. But you've ticked the box on the problem. So I think you have picked the real pain point. At TIE also, the cornerstone of TIE, who you're partnering with for this little tete-a-tete that we are having, the cornerstone is fostering entrepreneurship. That's what we think is the most important thing. And while we love to say that advice is the most important thing, the right advice can save you many, many months, sometimes even years. And the color of money really doesn't matter. Anyone can come and give you money. But the reality is almost every early stage entrepreneur who comes into TIE, whether attending our physical and nowadays virtual conferences, becoming a member, very often they back of their mind is also looking for money. So you can't wish that away. We need that, and in today's world we probably need even more, because it's become a pretty intensely competitive world. Let's not forget, over the last few years, the complete boundaries globally have gone away. So you're competing with everyone today. Great case in point is what happened with TikTok. So TikTok got banned out here, and then you had a string of companies out here. Actually, one of them from two of my ex-colleagues set up and to start going. But at the same point of time, you also have mighty Facebook with Insta Reels on it. So it's not like that space is only Indian. So you're not in India. You're not competing with only Indian companies. Today, our largest competitor, with no disrespect for the Indian companies, we don't consider an Indian company. We probably consider an international company in Booking.com as one of our largest competitors, or Airbnb, or that's what we think is real competition or the toughest competition. So I think it's become a global world. So that means funding has become even more important. Speed to market has become even more important. And I was trying to pick holes in the persistent framework for a while. I was scratching my head thinking, what are the holes I can pick? And actually, the only one which you can replace or do something within an other S was about speed and agility.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for me, and we'll talk about that at the right
Okay.
point. So we'll first
Okay.
answer your question, but I'd like to talk about it and say why agility becomes so important in today's world. And maybe you have it covered somewhere, and
Okay.
it's touched upon. But I think that's one of the most important attributes today for an entrepreneur. But to your point, yeah, I don't know where I heard this through for the first time. I heard something about be the Anderson basically solve the problem, right? If you have a pain in your head and you have a bad headache today, right, or right now, really you can do everything, including 1,000 anulom viloms and everything else. And I'm a yoga practitioner, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just need that Anasin, Saradon, Crocin, Panadol, whatever you want to call it. And because anisin rhymed well with vitamin, so I think it became that. So what is a vitamin? Actually, it's not even proven, but they say it's for good health.
Mm.
And you can keep having vitamins all your life. And they say apparently it gives you all those extra minerals that you need, etc., etc. But the vitamin's not going to take away your headache.
Mm.
So the right analogy to a company today is if you're solve the pain point. So you're trying to build a startup to let's make it up. Let's make a hypothetical startup, which is to give great startup advice online using AI. And by the way, I've just thought of this. I'm just thinking like, every startup is different. And if we have a database, and if TIE sponsors this and we have a database of, 10,000 startups, and we keep adding to it with the TIE global network we go, then we might have even 100,000 startups, and we put all the info in, what was the issue, who succeeded, why. So maybe we can build an AI engine around it. And next time someone goes and pitches to them and says this, we should be able to get on the app, some kind of solutions. So if we have this, people want to get real time. So they say, okay, what should I be doing for my startup, which is like this? And the first thing would be, hey, go find yourself. Are you a technical person? Can you build an app? And the guy says, no. He says, okay, go find yourself someone who can build an app firstly, right? Then write the kind of construct for the app. So how do we build the app? So, you can start with a wireframe, you can start with the features it'll have, you can whiteboard everything, you can put it out there, and then someone puts it to code and builds it. So really that's what you got to do. On the other hand, the vitamin out there would be, hey, get someone who is a good growth hacker and can start popularizing your app, but that's still 3 to 6 months away. Or get someone, well, design might be only 1 month away, so I won't even say design. Or get someone, what if you have a really really well-known person who's tremendous in finance, can become a potential CFO. You don't need that today. You need the CFO much later. You might need a controller after a few months of starting, but you can't put the cart before the horse. So I think we have to be very clear as entrepreneurs, what is the problem we're trying to solve, which is your first P, and therefore can I provide to my potential customers a anisin which takes away their pain.
Mm.
If I can take away that pain, today the biggest pain is that we are, working from home. If we go out, we have to wear a mask. And I've been thinking about this since ages ago and thinking, why don't we have motion controlled masks? When we are walking. So every evening I'll go for a walk and I'll go into places where there's no one and I want to remove the mask so that I can breathe. If there's no one there late in the evening, me and my wife will go, we can breathe. But you have to keep removing, you have to keep putting it back
Mm.
if someone's coming
Mm.
close. Why wouldn't it be motion controlled? And
Mm.
there's so many things motion controlled. Khatak se niche aayega like a face shield, khatak se upar jayega. I mean, why not, right? So something like that might be a game changer today. Who knows? And I hope people are working around it because we're going to be stuck with this thing for a
Yes.
while. But that is what will meet with instant success if it does a good job of it. Or a transparent mask through which you can breathe. Now, sounds odd, but who knows? Someone will have it tomorrow, and I'm not talking about plasticky stuff that you can breathe. There'll be some microfibers which are transparent, yet you can breathe, yet it keeps the virus out. So it's not easy, but if you can do that, I think it'll be pretty successful. I definitely think many women will want to buy that.
Yeah,
So I think we have to be focused always on the pain
Mm.
point. Where is the pain? How can I take it away?
got it. Makes sense. So getting on forward, Deep, business model is something, or the earnings model is always something that, startups have to contend with. And a lot of them want to build a very large company. And for them, that doesn't, that means a lot of burn before they can potentially become profitable. And some never become profitable for years and years and years of operations. So, and considering how funding becomes easier and harder over a period of time, sometimes funding gets harder, sometimes funding gets easier. So, what would your advice be to startups and founders on this? That do they build a model which is definitely requires funding from outside and wait till they get funding and then go on, or they should build a model which is starts making money and they therefore are not so dependent on external funding,
No, it's
especially plans like this.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Sushanto, and I don't think it's got a binary kind of answer. Like, I don't think it's a yes, no. It really is a dependent on your business model. So the first thing I would really tell any entrepreneur, and we do talk a lot to young entrepreneurs through TIE and otherwise, is that listen, it's got to be your plan, your baby, right? Then we tell people, listen, come back. Don't worry about a fancy PPT, but definitely flesh it out and work out your projections over the next few years till you can become self sustainable. So, whether it's a 5 year plan or a 7 year plan, I think
Mm.
less than five doesn't make any sense, and work that out. Now, that is again not a one time thing, it's an iterative process. You work it out. We all know on Excels you can create anything, but you have to. The key thing about a business plan and projections is really the parameters that you take. I think the variables are the key things. So what are you really, let's stick with maybe the mask idea. It's found some traction on the chat. Someone's for it and all. And really, I would love to make it. When I was telling my kids this, they were saying, why don't you make it? And I said, I wish I could. But obviously, you need a sensor control, and sensor control is there in all cars, as we know. It's not a big deal today, but it can be done. I'm surprised the Chinese haven't done it. But but let's stick with that model. So if we stick with the same kind of model, and the most important thing to figure out is how, the R&D out here, the prototyping out here, the sourcing of materials, the manufacture, and later comes the scalability. First, you've got to have a working prototype. You probably create
Hmm.
100 or 1,000 samples of it. You'll float it in the market in different places, and then you'll collect feedback from it. You'll give it to medical people, the folks who understand it, virologists and people like that. Does it work? Does it? You'll try to get certification on it. You'll want trademark on it. You want certification. This is there. So you've got to budget for everything which will go in behind making this. Obviously, people, which, number of people you need, number of engineers you need, where you source from, other costs, raw material costs, where you subcontract the factory. Probably that makes sense upfront. But if it's such a critical thing, you don't want to start up a factory of your own. So you subcontract it with someone who is in the garment business or whatever, has a line you trust, etc., etc. You have to put fair cost to all of this. But I think where most entrepreneurs probably get it wrong is inherently we are all optimistic, especially entrepreneurs are optimistic. And by the way, it's a good segue. I'll tell you why entrepreneurs have to be optimistic. You would have seen this, you would have known this. I got to know this very recently. The percentage of startup ventures which eventually become successful is so tiny. I won't even say the number, it's so tiny. People knew this number, no one would want to become an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs have to be optimistic to believe that I'll do it against the odds, against all odds. Okay, so they're optimistic. Now you're optimistic, so people get carried away and they underestimate the time it will take to get traction. It typically takes longer. My biggest learning in India is that everything takes a long time. This is not Silicon Valley. Even if it's an internet business, most companies here take a long time. It also takes us a long time to get product market fit. We think we've got it instantly. No, it takes a really long time to get it right. And that is where your ability to take feedback from the market, to pick up customer insights when you're talking to them, whether you're doing consumer labs, whether you're talking one-on-one, and then chiseling the product again. Or I'm not even saying pivoting, I'm just saying chiseling the product, coming back with it and saying, now it's right. That might take 3 iterations, and each iteration might take a couple of months. So you might take a long time to get it right, but when you get it right, then you can take off. So people don't budget enough time, because let's not forget, to Shushanto's point, your revenue meter does not start till the time you start selling. So whether you're making that mask or you're writing this book, till the time you're not out there in the storefront, you're not selling. So only when you start selling does your meter start. And sometimes you can have false starts also. So then the projection become, your first month we will sell, 100 a day, next month 1,000 a day, then 10,000 a day. Sounds great, doesn't always happen, because people might have issues with it. There could be returns, there could be quality issues, various other things could happen, even in the online world. So many startups are out there, and I know many folks whose initial days, they went on and on a very flattish line, little incremental line, nothing much was happening, and then suddenly there was a inflection point. Why did that inflection point happen is very important, and for every entrepreneur to understand what could be that inflection point. For many entrepreneurs, the inflection point has been COVID. Sadly, not for travel, of course, but for many other businesses, COVID has been the inflection point. There were businesses, I know 2 businesses personally. I'm invested small way in both, and both of them were coming close to saying we're done pre-COVID. They were looking for sale. They were looking to get back even a dollar on a dollar, like no loss, no, just a face saving kind of sale. They were almost done, and COVID changed the world for them, because suddenly in their particular sector, they were among the only game in town. Suddenly there was no physical world, especially those 2 months of complete lockdown. As we know, we wanted stuff delivered. We wanted to pay online. beautiful for online businesses who do this, especially if you do stuff which is needed all the time. So it all depends. Now you can't wait for a crisis like this, but you can create other scenarios which will be the right one for you to take off. So, it might have happened for Flipkart. I remember hearing from I think it was Sachin at a conference long back. He was telling me that we were at a point, this was before they sold to Walmart. We were at a point in the early days where we couldn't go beyond books. We were selling books, but nothing much was happening. We were kind of flatlining, etc., etc. And then suddenly, no, actually, they got an offer to sell, and it was at a very piddly amount compared to where that company went. And they actually accepted verbally till they came back to their kind of advisor, who literally tore them apart, screamed and shouted at them, and they came back. Now, that's a great escape. It's not a flip point, but something they did, then they struck gold. This has happened in so many businesses. If you read, Phil Knight's Shoe Dog, you realize that you have to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. Suddenly, something will happen. Maybe the life of a startup is not very different from the life of a sportsman. And if you think about sportsmen, they or sportswomen, they keep toiling, toiling, toiling. If you believe Malcolm Gladwell, they spend 10,000 hours to become a world beater. They come out there, and then suddenly something happens which propels them. And we see that in our favorite sport right now in cricket. Now, even out of this IPL, hopefully India will, find a couple of new guys. Whether it will be Padikkal, whether it will be Anirudh Gaikwad, we don't really, but 5, 6 guys have come up who nobody knew about, but they are the platform today, and they prepped for this platform, and they've actually succeeded in this platform. So I think startups also a bit like that, where you've got to hang in there, you've got to keep doing, but seize the opportunity. You will really, really have to seize it when you will get that opportunity to double down. So the kind of resilience you need, which is covered in persistence. That's why I love the word persistence. I like resilience. But the kind of resilience you need is the stamina of a marathon runner who still reserves enough in the tank to sprint when required, not only in the last bit. So that's what you really need, because if you get that, you don't want to be burnt out. And stamina is not only energy, stamina is also money. It goes back to Shashanto's point. So I think your projections are super critical. Your earning model that you're making, your revenue model or your P&L, really you're projecting your P&L out, is among the most important things which even non-tech, non-finance founders should be able to do with help of someone, because the founder knows what he's building or she's building better than anyone. Sit down with someone if you don't know how to do it and tell them, let's make a plan out of this, and then you make a plan out of it. So that's what I would have to say to that.
Great, wonderful. So, in fact, couple of things which I'll take away from that. One is, even when I met you, you had made the statement, just hang in there, right? And I noticed you made it again, which really fits in beautifully with the persistent, the meaning of the word persistent as we've created it. So, the other thing, Deep, I'll just shift a little bit to the investor's viewpoint, because given COVID, things have definitely changed in the funding environment, right? So now, what is the investor's viewpoint as of now? What does he see? What kind of startup, what kind of founder is he looking for when he makes an investment?
I can only speak for myself. I've only done most of the time angel investing, but maybe in some cases a little later.
So let's talk about angel early stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk about. So in my case, I think one of you already touched upon it in the beginning, which is, for me, it's all founding team. It's all the key team. For me, everything else is secondary for a very simple reason, because the world can change and a good team will figure out how to navigate that change. A good team will figure out how to pivot. A not so good team will not be able to pivot.
Mm.
I think it's really important that we are backing the right folks who are in it for the long haul, who know what it takes, are definitely ambitious and enthusiastic and energetic to say, listen, I look for that energy fire in the belly, but also pragmatic, and pragmatic enough to take the right feedback. And if you need to make changes, you're ready to make them. I have found that to be the undoing of many, companies who are so rigid in how to get there. So I like stubbornness, rigidity in saying, listen, I'm going to create an incredible company. I'm going to create an incredible product. I'm going to create, be very stubborn about that. Don't shift from that. But how you get there, I think you need to be a little flexible, which is sometimes that product may not be the product that you dreamt of. Might have 30-40% changes. Take that feedback because that might help you get there rather than you keep on saying, nahi, aise hi hoga or yehi model hai, succeed hoga. I found that to be the undoing. I think pragmatism can really, really help a lot in being, and like you said, Dhruv, hang in there. Yeah, that's been our story. Frankly, in the first 5 years, if we didn't hang in there, especially from 2001 to 2005, we came very close to enough, pressure slash even temptation to check out because things were pretty tough and bad. And I'm just grateful one was, inspired enough or felt positively enough about the business and was stubborn enough and had some great guys around me because I don't think you can do it alone. And hopefully we'll get to the first team because it's probably the most critical thing, like I'm saying. So if had you given up too early, and that's my favorite saying, most businesses or many good businesses have not seen the light of day because someone gave up too early.
Mhm.
How will you know? So, maybe 2 years, 3 years, who said that yeah, 3 saal mein sab kuch ho jayega? Maybe it's 4 years. So keep pushing it, keep trying new things. Yes, you need money for all of that, but maybe sometimes you don't need that much money. The maximum money you only need if you're in a B2C business and for marketing. Otherwise, you don't. Otherwise, it's people cost.
Correct.
Now, even office space cost has gone away in COVID. So it's really people cost, which is the most important thing, with which you can create magic in the internet world, at least. So if you talk about the technology world, the internet world, you're talking about really good people, and that's your biggest spend. And you should not skip that. You should get the best quality of people, because only the best quality of people will create the best kind of product and service. Otherwise, you pay peanuts and you get monkeys, and you'll never build a world-beating kind of product if you have that. So I think you have to be completely open to that, flexible on that, and yet very, very focused. I am going to build something, and even if it means running on fumes for a bit, that's perfectly okay to run on fumes for a bit. At least in our case, I thank our stars that we were okay running on fumes. Otherwise, we would have kicked it up. And then I was talking to some of my other colleagues who were there. I said, and imagine what we would have felt when someone did really well with very similar ideas to what we had, and we would say, "Arey shucks, yeah, we were there." It's a very, it's that regret of
I
I
know.
guess it's seller's regret, right?
Correct.
So if you sold the company, then it becomes seller's regret. You said, "Shucks, we should have just hung in there a little bit more," kind of thing. So that would be
He
my.
would probably have used a stronger term than shucks.
Tie is a family thing.
Yes.
Family channel, yes.
You know.
So, Deep, one of the things that we say, barrier to entry, and you say you have no, your business has no barrier to entry. Somebody will come in with put it. And the key thing is, of course, innovation, right? So if you see how Flipkart evolved or how Make My Trip evolved is by innovating, right? And there is this saying that, Indians are good copycats and they are not the best innovators. So, how do you see that, you need to innovate all the time, like you've done in your own business multiple times, adding stuff. Uh, how do you see that, and what is your advice to startups then?
Yeah, so I think barrier to entry is obviously very important because if there's something which does well, willy-nilly, you have a lot of people getting into that. A great example of this is when Domino's entered the Indian market. And I remember a lot of the existing players for fast food or things like pizza and all were saying, oh God, this is it. Domino's a big guy. They're going to come in there. What's going to happen to Nirula's? What's going to happen to the rest? And that was up north in this thing. And guess what happened? And then when McDonald's came in, and guess what happened with both of these guys coming in? The pie just increased.
Mm.
everyone who was good started doing well. These companies were so good, they fundamentally changed the taste buds, made the acceptance of pizza, and then others copied that, and made the acceptance of burgers and good hygienic food at a good price, etc., and all that. I didn't say healthy, I said hygienic. So McDonald's became very famous, etc., and then everyone said burgers is acceptable, and you have so many burger guys opening literally even now and saying we make the best burgers and we make the best burgers. So market does grow, but you have something about size of market, which is a very good point, which is the total. We call it TAM. So TAM is total addressable market. It's very good to know. And therefore, when someone was sizing up the market for burgers or pizzas, the smart guy had already seen this happen in many other countries. And he says, yeah, the TAM is everyone. The TAM is the guy who has the Bombay sandwich. The TAM is the guy who has the vada pav. The TAM is the guy who's having, kulcha chola in Delhi for 15 rupees on a ready. All that is your TAM in a sense. At some point of time, you can start converting. And that is why McDonald's will always have that ultra cheap product, the 7 rupee ice cream to bring people in. And then you upgrade yourself. Or they'll always have a burger which is so cheap, which is to get people in and say, yeah, prices start. Supermarket is. So you can do all of that, but whatever you make finally, I think one, you want to make sure that this is as good as anyone can make this product or the service. Otherwise, it will get copied and someone will do it better. So going back to my motion sensor, fantastical model around the mask, if I make that and I put it out like a little thing out here, I think there'll be at least 100 companies who will take a look at that, including maybe Apple and Samsung, and they'll say, wow, why? Because guess what? The whole world needs a mask today, right? So the potential TAM out there is 7 billion people. Everyone's impacted, and then people will spoil it or break it, or it will have a life and you'll need a second one, etc., etc., etc. It's a humongous TAM. So, but you want to make it better than anyone. And that is why R&D becomes so important in this business. In certain other businesses, you can be niche. You said niche, yes. Niche businesses for me are a little risky, but you have to carve out. I would rather change that niche, and I know you were constrained with an anagram, but I would have called it USP.
Okay.
So, what is your USP?
Okay.
What is your unique selling proposition?
Yeah.
Why should I come to you?
Yes.
Today, gaming and fantasy gaming has become a big thing. Dream 11 has a very clear proposition. They're saying, come make a team. But there are 5 other guys also trying to say, make these teams. I haven't got their proposition. And I'm not gaming, but my son is, and I can see it's very clear. What is your proposition? Why should I come to you? Or OTT entertainment. We are all watching something or the other nowadays, right? And the quality of content is incredible. What's the USP? What makes Netflix so special over the others? And Amazon will argue that, listen, Prime is right up there and they're pretty good. Hotstar's pretty good. They're all good. Maybe it's the recommendation engine. That's what people talk about. Maybe it's that. Maybe, or they just their content. They have always more content than anyone else. I don't know. But I do know when it was sports, I do a lot of, on demand, whatever, sports viewing. And I can tell you there that the quality of Star Sports or Hotstar is definitely 5 notches ahead of the others. So the moment there's a series which is not being shown on them for cricket, I've already lost half my interest, because neither is the quality of the feed good, neither will the commentators be good, etc., etc. It's the whole package. So I think USP is important. And if you have a very clear USP, then you keep building on that and you make that better than anyone else. So if you look at the Domino's thing, while Domino's is clearly maybe the largest pizza manufacturer, I don't know, maybe it's them or Pizza Hut or whoever, but every city in the world will have someone other than Domino's who everyone will say they make better pizza. And I'm not even talking about Italy, I'm talking about even in India. You go to any city and you'll say, yeah, the best pizzas. No, it's that guy. Fat Lulu makes the best pizzas in Gurgaon. And why? Because they do something which is so special, etc., etc., etc. I'd rather go there rather than go to that very factory kind of operated setup where every pizza is the same or it's not handmade and stuff like that. So you will create your own USP, and that will come out of the projections. How big do you want to be? Can you be handcrafted? Is that your USP? Are you niche enough to be handcrafted? That's a great USP. But if you want to make 7 billion masks, you can't be handcrafted, right? Then you've got to talk about the best factory and the best QC in town. So it depends on that. But do you barrier to entry is huge, and in B2C, let me not make it underestimate it. See, everything can get copied.
Mhm.
B2C, put something out there, and the other company will see it the day it's released. And all smart companies will be all over it, and they'll be studying it and saying, "Can we do this better? Can we do this?" And all that good stuff will happen. So in B2C, while your USP can be out there, get copied, what happens under the hood is the magic. And under the hood, the term comes from the automobile industry. And it's a fascinating term because the beauty of some of these cars, a Merc was not in the looks, they were better looking cars. They always prided themselves what's under the hood, as did many other cars. The under the hood is under the bonnet. And what is there? It's really the engine.
Mhm.
And that is the difference even in B2C. What you put out there, everyone sees. But what you do at the back end, your recommendation engine, not easy to copy. If you have got chatbots and if you're using AI, not easy to copy. Those
Mhm.
are the kind of things which is your secret sauce. That is your Fort Knox formula, which you have to guard zealously. And that is why technology becomes the kernel on which you can keep on shooting out other things, putting stuff out very quickly, testing stuff out, but your core. So your what people think is your barrier to entry sometimes, and when they say technology, that's the toughest barrier. Google
Mhm.
might be the greatest example of that. So many people have tried a search engine, including the mighty Microsoft. Everyone, Bing is out there, etc., etc. Yahoo came, died, everything. Why does Google have 97% share in India and 90 plus in most other places? It's clearly the logic, the algorithm, the technology that they have. Similarly for many of the others. So I think we have to think hard about this barrier to entry thing, and it comes down to really something which is sustainable and something which can't be copied.
I think that's
Usually
great.
innovation.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
innovation, absolutely.
absolutely. In fact, just to add to that, Deep, when you mentioned entry barrier, barrier to entry, um, the one thing which strikes me is that the barrier to entry can never be permanent. And that's exactly what you said. You got to keep improving it. Today, you may have create, today you may create, let's say, an engine which does, let's say, a search algorithm for Google. But tomorrow, somebody is going to copy it. Therefore, at any stage in life, you probably have to have the next version and the next version in the pipeline so that you continue to maintain that distance between yourself and the guy who's trying to copy you.
Beautifully said. Beautifully
Absolutely.
said. So
Absolutely.
right. So right. You have to have a whole slew of projects, and you're continuously. Why do you think Apple and all these other guys put so much pressure on themselves that every year they're going to have some incredible stuff coming out, etc.? That's pressure on themselves that we've got to have a world-beating product every time we launch. In fact, if they don't launch with a new phone, everyone's saying, "Really, what happened?" Like
Exactly.
so I think you're absolutely right. It's not a one-off. It
Yeah.
becomes a way of
Okay.
being, a way of living for that company. And it becomes an innovation machine which is constantly rolling out that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So just one more issue here. Again, I'll go back to the persistent model. We talk about traction, which is, are you getting customers? Are you getting sticky customers? Is it growing month on month? Are your revenues growing month on month? Now, I remember I have been a baby angel investor, not in your class, but a baby angel investor. In fact, we have coined a term for that, and it's there in the book. It's called Aam Aadmi Angel Investor. Right? It has nothing to do with Kejriwal's party, but it's basically the common man. The guy who's not, a super rich founder, but puts in 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs in a company. Right? So I have been dabbling in angel investing for the last 6, 7 years, and initially, I realized that most of us used to invest based on excitement. Boss, it's a great idea, wonderful idea, it'll do well, etc., etc. Over time, I think there seems to be a change, and it's a continuous change where today people are looking at more and more proof. Show me the proof. You may have a great idea, you may have a great concept. It may be your entry barrier may be wonderful, etc. But can you show me customers coming? Can you show me traction? And can you show me growing traction? So, is that a general thing which has happened to let's say, investors in general over the years, where they're asking for proof? So an idea, in fact, this is, to all those founders out there who keep asking us for investments. Are pure ideas fundable, or do you need to show proof?
No, very good question, bro. I think it's that classic stage of investor. So there are investors who we call the very early stage investors or the very early stage angels. They will be investing without proof, because by the time you've got POC, proof of concept, and you've got something going, most of the time the company is already on to Series A, sometimes even Series B. So, but most of the time Series A, which means an institutional venture capitalist comes in and is going to put in anywhere between 3 to 8, 9, $10 million to come in that round, which means there's no room for angels. Then angels, no one wants to manage many kind of people.
Correct.
Then you'll only get a chance there on the seat of the table if that founder really values your judgment.
Yeah.
So typically, smaller checks, individual checks are earlier. And to see proof of concept there is unfair, because if you go to a guy, let's say these three really smart guys and girls out of very good college, techie guys, they want to build this thing and they have a great idea. उन्होंने 2-3 साल काम किया है. They clearly don't have a corpus of funds to invest into.
Sorry to interrupt you. There's some problem with your camera. The screen is getting,
Yeah, it's a little blurred. Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah.
Now it's okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened. It's
That must have been the motion sensor in action.
maybe I'll try not to move too much. Okay. So that motion sensor. Okay, mass bhi aa gaya. So if these young kids are out of college 2, 3, 4 years, they clearly don't have the wherewithal to invest, right? They don't have that money. If they have a great idea, also they've proven they can build. They're very good in certain languages. They can build. They've got a garage project going on. Saturday, Sunday, they're building something. Now, if you want to come in and you believe in them, or as profs, you've seen them. Don't forget, Google's first significant check came from a prof. Larry and Saji was actually an Indian and sadly no more. A wonderful guy called Motwani, Raji Motwani, and he actually funded them. He wrote them, I believe, a 100K check just because they were students and he saw them being so brilliant, and it meant a lot of money to him. And obviously it worked out very well. But I'm just saying, you have the first shot at knowing who is truly, truly exceptional, brilliant, and committed. What could be better as a prof? If you're not a prof, you've seen these people, you have trust in their ability, then you may not see the POC. But you can spend tons of time with them. They'll give you all the time to go into great detail. And my proxy for POC, or my proxy for what you were saying, show me what you built, is depth. Go deep with these guys. Go really deep. Keep grilling them, going further and further and further, and see how well they've thought through. Maybe they haven't, and maybe tomorrow they'll come back and think and give you an answer. The ability to go very deep is also a very important quality for a successful founder, because very often the problem will be solved when you go very deep. The insight will not be obvious to all. If it's obvious to all, it's not an insight. Then it's an observation. Everyone knows it. आपने सबको पता है ये problem है. The insight really comes if you're willing to go deep. And too many metaphors today, but I can't avoid but say it's the difference between snorkeling and scuba diving. And because I love both, I can tell you, you need the mentality also of a scuba diver, which is I want to go down and see the bed of the ocean and what's going on there. I'm not happy enough to see beautiful fish from the top. So it's a mentality, but real hairy problems only get solved, I think, when you go very deep.
Okay. Sushanto, can we? You're muted. You're muted.
I was just thinking, Upasna, if there is, want to take one question from the audience.
Yeah. So
and then,
maybe there's an interesting question from Bhaskar Kalale, and which says, can scale be a barrier to entry? So let's ask Deep that question.
That's a lovely question, Bhaskar. And indeed, it can till a certain point if the scale doesn't stagnate. So some very large scale companies, as we all know famously, I mean, we all know Nokia, irrespective of your age, you would know about Nokia. But many of you will not know about Remington and how Remington was like the market leader in typewriters, and they kept on pushing typewriters when computers were coming, and obviously they were toast one day. That's happened with many such companies.
Kodak is the.
Kodak, I was just going to say, is another great example. It was generic. It was generic for photo film and for cameras, but they missed the whole digital photography thing altogether. So scale is great. It is this thing, but you want scale and also to be innovating. So actually you need momentum, and momentum is mass into velocity. So let's go back to our basics. You need mass scale, but you also need velocity. And that's when magic happens. When big companies are moving fast, then it's almost impossible to catch up. But if you're a big company and you've kind of stagnated and you're going easy and there's someone coming from the far left with a curveball and innovating this thing, you might not be an easy target because you'll keep throwing money initially to beat it, but eventually good sustained competition will have you.
Interesting. In fact, you mentioned earlier that you mentioned two terms, speed and agility.
Yeah,
So not only scale, but the agility to see what the hell is happening in the world and to respond to it fast.
agility is
And
damn important. Yeah, and I'm sorry to maybe one of your E's. I will the entry barrier. I'll say another E with it, which for me at the end of the day is the most important is execution.
okay,
You can
okay.
have the which you have covered in many ways, so it's there in what you
So,
said. But
so we have a next book coming out.
Yeah,
We'll stretch the word.
it'll go deep like Deep Kalra, right? So
Yeah.
but execution is really important, guys. You can talk all you want, you
Yeah.
can have all the plans, you can have all the Excels, the wireframes, but at the end of the day, it's every day pounding at it, which most businesses are made of. I mean, most. There'll be some other businesses which don't need it, need sheer brilliance only. But most businesses with a customer interaction or with commerce also need relentless execution. In fact, I think in Amazon, it's as much execution as innovation. So probably both would be equally important for them.
Sushanto, you have a last question?
So I was just thinking, Deep, that the angel investor is a critical part of the whole. So I started. So Lead Angels was founded by a professor, a student, and myself from IIT Bombay, and so as much as that angel investing was very well developed in the West, and when it came to India, you know, uh, it had to sort of morph to the Indian situation. So, how do you see the future of angel investing in India? And there are new platforms which are coming up. There are, of course, we all see VC is now investing at the angel space. Accelerators moving on and becoming angel investors. So, how do you see that happening across India?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I think India is just still at a very kind of early inflection point of the whole startup community. And COVID notwithstanding, clearly the startups have shown resilience, that we can go on beyond even during COVID. So much of funding has happened. In fact,
Absolutely.
I recently, shared a report, and maybe Upasna or someone will share it with everyone, which actually spoke about just, the anti-fragility, I think is what we called it, of the Indian startup system, because so many are actually getting funded and continue to do well. So I think angels are going to do really well. My take on angel investing, and it's a learning for me personally, and I can share it with everyone. I think it's a good thing to do if you have actually a couple of things in your arsenal. Obviously, you understand business, you're able to get good people, etc. But I also think time. So for me, the hard learning was to try to do angel investing without having the enough time for it. That's cheating yourself. That's actually setting yourself for failure. So now I tend to actually go with some angel funds, and I would rather invest behind a team who's got an angel fund who goes ahead and does their business, and wherever I can add value, I can come in. Otherwise, they're doing their business. It's just a function of if you have the
Yeah,
time or not. But
makes sense.
best angels are the ones who have the time, are willing to study. And to the earlier point of going deep, if you have to go deep, means you have to spend, maybe 10 hours actively with founders before investing, and maybe another 20 hours studying on your own. I'm just maybe 30 hours. Some people might do it in 15 hours. But if I was going to think I can do it by spending an hour with someone and then doing an hour or two of my own work, it ain't going to happen. I mean, I will make far more mistakes. So therefore, I'm quite happy to work with angel funds who do the required diligence. I think that's the way, but the future is super bright, I think. And so if
Absolutely.
you're an angel fund, like
Uh, we've seen a more investments post-COVID in the same year. You know, year to year, our investments have probably gone up by 50% post-COVID. So that's probably true for most angel networks.
Yeah.
Dhruv, but last word is always yours, Professor.
Oh, okay. So then we have to carry on till 7 o'clock.
Okay.
No. So I just have one quick comment here on Deep's comment on angel investing. My personal experience, I think, as an angel investor, making money is only one of the objectives, right? And it's obviously a very long-term objective. But I think far more important for me has been the learning that has happened as a part of it. Because, you invest in, let's say, Reliance Industries, right? You may make money, that's okay. But you can never sit across the table with Mukesh Ambani and, discuss what strategy Reliance should be following. Whereas as an angel investor, you can sit across the table in Cafe Coffee Day or whatever, Costa Coffee with the founder, and you can thrash out, direction, strategies to take. It's phenomenal involvement. It's phenomenal learning. And personally, if you ask me, it's kept me young.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point you made. It's wonderful to meet, young founders in their 20s, brimming with new ideas, to challenge them, to learn. I think I end up learning so much in those meetings. So I look forward to meeting young founders because for me, it's always a good learning.
Absolutely. And for us, you're a young founder. So we always look forward to meeting you.
That's not an adjective I get, called quite often nowadays. So,
was from a professor who's 65 years old. Sure, you'll get it.
Young 65. Good show.
Okay.
You have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Good show. Great.
So, Upasana, over to you.
Over to you, yeah.
Thank you very much. I don't think I have anything to say at all. I think this was a very, very exciting and full of insights. We've been getting enough on the chat as well as otherwise from the member groups about how wonderful and sort of insightful session this has been. Very well moderated, and of course, Deep's sharing the insights and wonderful, really nice. Thank you so much. Great session. Great way to end the day, at least part of the day. Thank you so much.
And
Thanks.
if you can share our email IDs to the people online, it'll be
sure. So I'll request Pallavi and Andre to kindly put it on the chat so that anybody who wants that, and otherwise anybody else who wants to reach out to us, please drop in a line. We'll be happy to connect you to Professor Dhruv and to Sushanto anytime, please. Thank you.
And thanks so much, Deep. Thanks so much for contributing solidly to the book, for your wisdom and for your session today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, folks. And
thank you, Deep. Thank you, Deep. Thank you, Dhruv. And thank you,
Upasana. Wish you lots and lots of sales of the book and the next one to follow.
Thank you. Please remember your targets.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at it. All right.
See, make my trip will continue on its own. This is what you have to focus on.
Right, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Hanji, so are we still on?
I've sent the books Amazon link in the.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Pallavi. I told you your target is a miserable 10,000.
Okay. If anyone messages me or mails me, I will just send them the.
And send them our email IDs as well.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Pallavi.
sir.
Thanks,
Thank
Prati,
you.
Neeraj, Andre,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thanks so much. Wonderful. बहुत बढ़िया. Wonderful.